Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, The College Process. Once again, I'm Ed from Principia Prep, and today we're going to be going through all the questions you guys have here on the channel and answering our questions in a more detailed format here in video format. As you may know, every Friday, I know I've missed a couple of Fridays here, it's been a little crazy here as we're getting closer to May 1st, so a lot of parents have been asking me for help individually through consultations, stuff like that. So I haven't been able to get to your YouTube questions, but I'm going to get them all done today. All of them now, basically for the last 4 weeks here. I'm going to answer all your questions here in video format. Once again, though, if you do have any questions, you leave any questions in any of the channel videos here, we will answer them on Friday, make a video like this, and then post it on the next day or that same Friday, either Friday or Saturday, essentially answering your questions in more detail for you guys out there. And all that being said, let's jump right into the questions. First question we have here is from Brian Joy from 4 weeks ago. Appealed SAP denial. For those who don't know, SAP basically means satisfactory academic progress, meaning you have to hit at least a 2.0 GPA from a federal standpoint mandate from the federal government to be able to get any financial aid, any kind of whatsoever, state, federal, institutional, colleges, money, etc. So you have to have a 2.0 or above to be able to get any aid, grants, or scholarships in the world of financial aid, that is. And here Brian says, have qualifying extenuating circumstances, but I changed my major to better accommodate my new disability, and now I'm rejected over that. Anything I can do feels wrong. Now, if you already appealed, Brian, I guess the question is, how did you appeal? Did you indicate to them that there was a medical issue or a financial issue or something in place that had hindered you before to get to the 2.0? If you did and they denied you, I would go back to your academic advisor and ask, what classes can I take over if I got a D or an F and get a higher grade, maybe an A or a B, to basically get me to that 2.0 level. So I would go right to my academic advisor and say, which courses are able to be taken over again, like let's call it this summer, that if I take over again, basically what grade do I need, an A, a B, a C, to get us above that 2.0 level, because 2.0 is the critical level here. So let's say you're close. Let's say you're a 1.7, 1.8. If you take 1 or 2 classes over again, you got a D or an F, which is only 1 point or 0 points out of the scale points. Basically, most of the way it works is an A is 4 points, a B is 3 points, a C is 2 points, and a D is 1 point. In most colleges, obviously an F is 0 points. We have to get to that 2.0 average level. So I'd ask my academic advisor, which courses can I take over again? What specific letter grades do I need to get us to that 2.0 and above to get any kind of financial consideration at your school at all? So right to the academic advisor I'm going, if I was you. Next question here comes from Patricia. Thank you for all your great information. My son appealed to admissions for more merit-based aid. I'm appealing to financial aid, but my income hasn't really changed. It has actually increased a bit. So as I'm applying, let me see, there's more to the question here. My question is, if my son's appeal to admissions for financial aid gets rejected and I want to appeal the rejection, do I go to the admissions office or financial aid office? Now, when it comes to appeals, if you guys have watched most of my videos on appeals, the way appeals work is the admissions office has more basically leeway. They don't care about your income, your assets, that kind of stuff as far as scholarship money through the admissions office. The financial aid office cares about financial information, income, assets, change in income and assets like medical expenses, death in the family, job losses, kind of stuff. If your income has not gone down in any way or your assets have not come down through any kind of specific situation, the financial aid office is very likely not going to give you financial aid, or at least not any additional financial aid. They're all doing everything based on calculators, call it. The admissions office, you can do multiple appeals if you keep asking for more scholarship aid. So if you're looking to see, if I got rejected by the scholarship side, should I try to push more on financial aid? Financial aid is probably not going to help you, unfortunately. So for the grant money, I'd be going back to the admissions and try to figure something else out. I know the school's giving us more scholarship money, or my students done well academically senior year. We have another test score in place, SAT, ACT, etc. Something to make them try to step to the table with more scholarship money. Okay, next question here from A here. Next question is, hello, quick question. How often do they ask for bank documents for appealing for FAFSA? Now, when it comes to appealing the FAFSA and the schools themselves asking for bank statements, it's very rare, unless there's a big error. Like, let's say you guys filled out all the FAFSA stuff and you indicated you had $1 million in cash or savings, or the student indicated they had $1 million in cash and savings, when in reality you had 10,000, but by accident you put the 2 cents, the zeros for the cents, in as dollars, because FAFSA doesn't count cents. So if you put 10,000 and you put 2 more zeros essentially to get to basically 10,000 and zero change, that actually equates to $1 million on the FAFSA form. Then I would see possibly them asking for it. But the reality is most of the time they'll take your word for it if there's an error of that magnitude. But if they don't, the bank statements would be able to basically put in place to show them we don't have $1 million. I mean, we wish we had $1 million essentially, but we don't have $1 million. We had 10,000 essentially. So it's basically the only time I ever see a school will ask for documentation from the bank statement side as far as your assets, that situation. All right, next question here from STL. I have a question. Can I pay my deposit on April 30th? Is it too risky? No, if you're doing deposits, let's say this is on the video for multiple deposits. I'm assuming you have more than one school you're considering. You can send in 2 deposits the day it's due. Let's say May 1st, essentially. So even though it's April 30th now, you can actually send it out tomorrow and still be timestamped for that day. So you're perfectly fine. There's no specific need for you to send the deposit in any earlier. If you want to, it's fine, but you can do it all the way up until the day of the deposit. Now, some schools are tricky because if you do the deposit very late in the season, let's call it, April 30th, May 1st, essentially, they might not have housing for you. So that might be a consideration, an issue why you do the deposit earlier. But depositing on April 30th or May 1st is not going to be a problem. Okay, next question here from Poker Addict here. Question: can I get more, FAFSA other than the Pell grant? I am super broke. Okay. The way the FAFSA works is the FAFSA itself is basically just a tool utilized by the federal government to get you both federal, in some cases state aid, because states use the FAFSA form as well for their own state aid, and schools use it as well for their own institutional aid. Now, when it comes to the FAFSA form, Pell grant is theoretically the only specific grant available to anyone that qualifies for the grant. So if you have a low expected family contribution, a low income, low assets, typically you'll be offered the Pell grant. In addition to the Pell grant, there's also what's known as SEOG, Supplemental Educational Grant, also known as Federal Supplemental Educational Grant. The SEOG is typically given out if the student has a high need, or essentially a large amount of Pell grant being given to them. If you are receiving Pell grants, I would check with the financial aid office. Are we also eligible for SEOG, Supplemental Education Opportunity Grants? It's an additional grant that can be given to you, a few $1,000s here of additional grant, by the way, in addition to the FAFSA form, if your student is Pell eligible, but the school has the discretion whether or not you get SEOG or not. So I'll be checking directly with the financial aid office. Since we got Pell, can we get SEOG to add a couple $1,000 extra in grant money from the federal government? Okay, next question here from Isaac here. Hey, on question 34, what if I'm the one, I guess this is the one, that am applying for the FAFSA form? For what am I supposed to be doing there? Unfortunately, I don't understand your question here, Isaac. I'm not sure what question 34 is, because I don't know if you're an independent student or dependent student. I don't know if your parents are married, if they're divorced or separated. With all these different questions pop up. The question 34 might be like 4 or 5 variations of question 34. So if you want, basically post this back on and show me what question 34 is, or write it down here, I guess, in the post here. I'll be able to answer your question next week. Next question here is from this person right here, Conrad here. How do I get financial aid? Well, the starting point for most financial aid is requiring, or it needs to be, filling out the FAFSA form. So if you already filled the FAFSA form, that will start the process. If your student going off to college next year or is already in college, doing the FAFSA form would essentially establish the opportunity for you to receive financial aid of any kind. All right, next question here comes from Laura Soto. I have some leftover loan money. Can I use it for a house down payment, or is that not wise? Most of the time when you guys have loan left over, what I typically tell students to do is, if you're not going to be using it for next academic year for any reason, for the housing for next academic year or books or the tuition, I typically tell parents and students, send the loan funds back to the lender. That way you'll lower your loan amount, and that way you don't have that much loan debt growing. See here, next question from 12 days ago. I am baffled. If my child was granted work study, why is she having to pay back during tax times? She has a small side job to help her, and she earned less than $13,000. She was getting taxes back until work study was put in. This is frustrating and wrong. Now, the way it works, unfortunately, is I'm very doubtful you got $13,000 in work study. I'm not saying that you didn't, but in 25 years, I don't think I've ever seen a student get more than $4,000, almost $5,000 maybe max in work study. So if you're talking taxes, then yes, the U.S. Department of Taxation, let's call it, the IRS essentially, they're going to tax you if your student makes $13,000. They're just going to tax you, good, bad, or different, unfortunately. Now, when it comes to financial aid won't count your work study student money. So if the student's working work study and they made, let's say, $4,000 or $5,000 in work study, the financial aid office doesn't count work study towards financial aid consideration, but it does count any outside monies. So let's say your student, if they did make $13,000, let's say made $3,000 in work study and $10,000 working anywhere else. That $13,000 in total will be taxed by the IRS to some portion. The financial aid office will only look at the 10,000 you made outside of work study, not the entire 13,000. So unfortunately, you are correct. The IRS is going to want a portion of this, unfortunately. But the school is not going to count the work study. Next question here from 12 days ago. Hi, exhausted my federal loans. Well, I have about 10,000 left, which isn't enough for my program. My credit score is 600, so I'm denied a private loan. What does a credit score need to be? And if I'm in, can you have collections or charge-offs? I also have 3 inquiries. When it comes to student loans, as a student themselves, let's put it that way. As a student, you are able to get to the maximum amount of federal student loans, the aggregate. If you're not sure what that is, it's basically the max amount the federal government let you basically borrow. I'll put a picture on the screen here. The maximum let you borrow as a dependent or independent student. So if you reach any of these levels, whether you reach the dependent level or whether you reach the independent level, either one of these maximums, they're not going to let you take on any more from the federal side until you start paying back these loans. Now, on the private side, most of the time, whatever the lender is, Sallie Mae, SoFi, Discover, any of the lenders, the state loans as well, most of them will not let you borrow as a student specifically, unless you have a credit score around 640, 650, at least 25 years of age, and at least making 35, 40 grand. If you're not doing that, you're going to need a cosigner. Now, if the cosigner's credit score is below a 620, they're also going to get denied. So you need a credit score of at least 630 or so and above as a cosigner, or 640, 650 as a student to be able to get a private loan on your own. Okay? Hopefully that answered all your questions. Next question here from 10 days ago. What if I'm applying as an independent without income? I'm struggling. Now, if you're applying as an independent student, the reality is you're going to be offered the max amount of financial aid available out there, because if you're indicating here your income is very low, that means that basically they provide you as much aid as possible. Typically, the max amount you would have got for Pell grants, you're probably going to get SEOG, Supplemental Education Grant, a lot of state aid if you're staying in state, and very likely you're also going to be getting institutional grant money from the college. So ideally, the goal is to fill out the FAFSA immediately, get it out of the way, see what the school can provide you in federal, state, and essentially institutional aid, because that's the key here. But if you're independent, in 9 out of 10 times, it's very beneficial from getting financial aid because you're not counting the mom or dad's income at all. It's just the student's financial situation. Question here for the California DREAM Act, your FAFSA or CADDA. So if you're non-resident, you can't complete it. If you're talking about getting the Cal grants in place, you can also go through the DREAM, as you had put here, the CADAA. You can go through the DREAM Act for California. So the way it works essentially, as long as you're graduating from a high school in California, you should be eligible for the DREAM Act as far as the state is concerned. But if you are asking, I'm not a non-resident, so let's say you're coming from Texas or New Jersey, then the Cal grants would not apply to you. You have to be a resident of that state for you to be able to do that state's DREAM Act form through the state of California to get the grant money from the state of California. So you have to be a resident at least. If you're not a U.S. citizen, it's fine, but you have to be at least a resident graduating from a California school. So yes, if you don't meet those criteria, California resident or California graduating high school student, they're not going to give you the DREAM Act money, unfortunately. Okay, next question from 10 days ago. Thank you for the information you share. How do you find out about scholarships available or not through the college? Very simple. First, I'm checking with the guidance office, the college advising office at the high school. What do we have here locally? From the PTA, the Elks Club, so on and so forth. Then from there, I'm also looking to go online to different online scholarship searches. FastWeb, FinAid, CapEx, College Board, all great resources for free scholarship searches online. First, obviously, the college, they provide typically the largest, but then right to the guidance office and then the private sources online. All right, next question here. Can I use this question here? Can I use 529 for off-campus housing? Yes, you can. You can utilize the 529 monies you have for off-campus housing as long as it benefits the student to be able to attend that institution. So yes, you can do that. Next question here. Can subsequential loans have a pre-penalty if paid early? I'm not sure what you mean by subsequential. I think you're talking about subsidized or unsubsidized. And the way it works is for pretty much every loan out there, whether they're federal loans, private loans, or state loans, there is no pre-penalty. So you can pay these off anytime you want early on if you're able to, which obviously I do suggest paying them down aggressively as you're going through the process of repayment. Okay, next question here. From Nia, can a 529 plan be opened after high school? Technically, you can open up a 529 at any point in time. You can have a 529 for a 75-year-old, an 80-year-old. Doesn't really matter as long as it's used at some point in time for an educational purpose. So yes, you can use it. You can open a 529 anytime. Next question here. Kelvin here. Is there any way I can converse with you individually? Yes, at the end of all my videos, I post all my contact information, my cell phone number, and so on and so forth. So if you want, you can reach out to me. Once again, I do help families out one-on-one basis. I do this as a consultant, so I do charge. By the way, some parents are shocked that I charge, but the reality is this is what I do for a living. So I do give you guys a lot of content. Obviously, I have over 200 videos here on YouTube, and I answer all your individual questions on YouTube as well as I also do the high school presentations, a lot of other presentations. I even put the presentations on here as well. So if you do need help, guys, I do sit down basically through Zoom. So not really sitting down, but I do through Zoom meetings with you guys, and I do consult and help parents out with the financial aid side, the admission side, the financial aid forms, and everything else. So if you need help, obviously reach out. I'm going to give you my contact information at the end. And once again, I do charge. So if you're looking for assistance, I do charge if it's a one-on-one consultation situation. Let me go to the next question here. Do you have to put a deposit on a waitlisted school to stay on the wait list? You do not have to put a deposit on a waitlisted school until they basically come back and tell you whether or not you're in. So at that point in time, that's when they want you to deposit, basically saying, yes, I want to go there. So if you're looking at it from a double deposit situation, you would only be able to deposit at the school you've been accepted to. The school you've been waitlisted on that you're waiting to see if you got in, that school will then contact you at some point in time, typically after May 1st, let you know if we have a spot or not. Then you have to deposit with them. Okay. Next question here. What do you think about niche specialties, theater, musical theater, college prep advisors? I'm not opposed to college advisors on any front. I know you have the video here, which is the reasons why I wouldn't hire a college advisor. I have basically 3 different videos: the college, why I would not hire one, why I would hire one, and then the third one is basically if you're thinking about it and the benefits of hiring a college advisor. Now, when it comes to theater, music, the arts, this kind of stuff, I do lean more towards I would like to hire someone from the perspective of you guys are way more complicated. We have the portfolios, we have the auditions. There's a lot more stuff involved. There's videos, there's YouTube videos, there's editing, there's scripts in some cases, there's PDFs, there's slide rule through so there's a lot of stuff involved with the artists, let's put it that way. So I've dealt with a lot of actors, photographers, painters, basically everything, the fashion industries, people, everything else. You guys are a little bit more complicated because the stuff they need for the portfolio and everything else, your resumes, are a lot more stringent than they are for like a normal student as far as the normal path of like undecided student or business student kind of situation. So do lean more towards, I would say yes, especially if you have no experience in this, like you haven't done National Portfolio Day or you have no idea what I'm talking about when I say National Portfolio Day, then yeah, I would probably lean more towards going towards the direction of looking at somebody to help us out on this side, especially if they have experience doing this. The next question's here. All right, next question here. How do I enter net worth on the FAFSA if one spouse is self-employed? Now, the FAFSA question is pretty standard as far as what they're going to ask you for as far as your investments and your financial situation on the asset side, let's call it. It's basically only 3 questions, really. It's just they're going to ask you for cash and savings. They're going to ask you for investments, which basically mutual funds, stocks, so on and so forth, rental property. And the third, they're going to ask you for the value of your business. If the self-employed person has less than 100 employees, your business has no value. So that would be 0 automatically if you have less than 100 employees. The other 2 things should be pretty easy to find out as far as your net worth, because on the FAFSA, checking savings, investments outside of retirement. So retirement assets, 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, no retirement stuff counts at all, no pension. As well as your primary home also doesn't count, which I talk about in the 8 big mistakes made on the FAFSA form. So you guys are really just looking at your checking, savings, and stocks and bonds, and maybe rental property. But other than that, you guys aren't putting much more on the FAFSA form. Next question here. Can a self-employed with 0 employees put the net worth of 0 on the FAFSA? Yes, if you have less than 100 employees, your business is worth 0. Once again, this looks like the same video here, or same person asking the question. So yes, the business would be worth 0. And the last question here. I got accepted to university in Hong Kong. Congratulations with a scholarship without SAT scores. I will attempt the SATs next week, expect a 1500 plus SAT score. What are the chances of a higher scholarship? Well, I don't know the name of the school, whether it's domestic or not domestic in the US or not. So I don't know what your score is going to be. But typically, once you hit that 1400 mark or above, that's when a lot of schools will start giving like large amounts of scholarship money. Of course, I don't know the school you're talking about, but I would say anything near that 1600 perfect score requirement, perfect score, I guess, ceiling would be very beneficial. So if you're able to score 1500 plus, I would expect some more scholarship money, but once again, I don't know the school. But having a 1500 plus SAT score usually puts you in like the top 10, top 5% of all scores. In some cases, depending on your region, where you live, where you're coming from, so on and so forth, and the top 2 or 3% of your region. So very likely would make you more eligible for more scholarship money. And other than that, thank you guys for watching today. Those are all the questions I answered for you guys here. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. I will be doing this more often. I'll be able to get more time in to help you guys with the questions on Fridays going forward. Due to the fact that we are now going to look at May 1st in about a day or two, that means that most of the decisions are out of the way, and I'll have a little bit more lead time to be able to help you guys. Now, if you guys are looking for more help, here's my contact information. Once again, I do help out families on a one-on-one basis through Zoom. So if you do need help, just feel free to reach out. That's my cell phone number. The easiest way to reach me is actually texting me, or you can send me an email here. Other than that, thank you for watching today's video.